Yeah, thank you. Thank you all for being here today. I think this press conference is really to talk about the city of Oakland's facing our sharp increase in violent crime over the last 7 days. And we've had 7 people tragically killed in the city of Oakland. To date, our homicide division has already investigated 11 homicides compared to one at this same time last year. So the department continues its effort to communicate directly with those that are involved in violence, uh, meeting people who are experiencing the trauma of violence in our community. OPD is utilizing the ceasefire teams with the help of meeting with Mayor Schaaf and our independent Department of Violence Prevention and our other community partners. We're all coming together to try to put forth a strategy to help reduce this violence. All of our attention in the city of Oakland is focused towards reducing gun violence. And collectively, we're working to provide assistance to those loved ones in our traumatized communities. And so I'll take questions, regarding the status of the violence in the city of Oakland at this point.
All right, raise your hand if you have a question, please. Anyone? Melissa, please.
Yeah.
Melissa Colrose, please go.
Hear me?
Can you guys hear me? It's Melissa. Can you hear me?
Yes, Melissa. Amber, 1 second. I'll let Melissa go. Melissa, go ahead, please.
Okay.
Okay. All right. I'm wondering if you could elaborate on the meeting with the mayor's violence prevention team, meeting with the mayor and the violence prevention team, and if there's any specific outreach in response to these particular incidents over the last 7 days.
Yes, the mayor convened a meeting with the police department and the Department of Violence Prevention, as well as our Ceasefire partnership, to begin to talk about all of the shootings and violence that have occurred over the last 7 days. We really wanted to make sure that we had a commitment of all working collaboratively to address these issues, make sure that we were direct communicating with those involved in violence, making sure that we were reaching out to our external partners for support and assistance, but making sure that we were also providing resources to the traumatized communities. We understand that this is impacting our entire city, and Oakland is not alone. Obviously, violence has increased in many cities across the country, and so really the mayor was providing her support with any resources that we could provide to families that are experiencing this trauma, but also really showing her commitment to focusing on reducing the violence and really pushing the department to make sure that it's at the forefront of everything that we're doing. And that's what we're committed to doing. Department of Violence Prevention is also communicating directly with families of that have been traumatized by this violence and providing them support as well. And so I think it's a collective effort between all departments. We're all hands at this point trying to manage the violence in the city of Oakland, particularly the gun violence.
Amber, you had a question?
Yes, Chief, I think it's a two-pronged question. Do you, what do you attribute this spike to? And is there any commonality, meaning are any of them linked?
I think what we attribute to this spike of violence is that, again, no different than other cities around the country, we've seen gun violence rise as a result of the COVID pandemic. Since March 12th of 2020, we've seen our homicides increase significantly. We're unable to do strategies in the same manner we were doing them previously. Our ceasefire strategy that really centers around direct communication has been impacted. And so really the mayor has pushed us to come up with alternative ways to communicate with those at the highest risk. That means that we're having to go to residences, practicing social distancing, taking all of the COVID security protocols, but also trying to still get out there in a community to begin to message to people around putting down guns. And that's been challenging. And so I do think that that's impact our ability to quickly get on top of these spikes in violence. Currently, to your second question, we haven't really associated a link to the violence, and that's really concerning because we haven't seen a connection between groups and gangs. It has been several isolated incidents where confrontation has occurred and there's been shootings as a result of those confrontations, which has led to some tragic loss of life. And so it's more than just group and gang violence that we're addressing. We're also addressing the violence that people are picking up firearms and using them as a result of confrontations or frustration or whatever the case might be for them to make that tough decision.
So it's not necessarily, you said not gangs, not necessarily drug deals, not necessarily any particular thing.
Yeah, no one particular thing is driving the violence. And Amber, that's not particular. We usually might see some trend, but in this case, unfortunately, we haven't been able to say that there is a specific trend that is driving this violence. We have seen this violence happen across the city, from parts of West Oakland to even in our Lake Merritt district, all the way to our deep East Oakland, which has seen the most violence.
Are all the victims Black or Latino males?
It's multiracial. I think we have victims from multiple races. It is not predominantly one race.
Anyone else have a question?
Yes, I would like to ask you about if these crimes were focused in any specific part of the city or they are just all the way around?
We've seen them citywide, but the vast majority of these homicides have occurred in deep East Oakland. We've seen a rash of shootings in deep East Oakland. Again, no linkage between the shootings, but random acts of violence.
I don't know if it's possible to ask you about a different topic. I would like to ask a question about vaccination. I know that
We're gonna just stick on this topic right now for this press conference.
Oh, all right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask another question?
As long as it pertains to this, Amber, of course.
Oh yeah, it does. So,
Go ahead.
I mean, what do you want to say to the citizens? I mean, there's this spike, Oakland sees spikes, on and off. This isn't the first. What happens moving forward? What are your plans? How are you moving forward?
Well, I think we'll continue to reallocate resources from our specialized units out into our field patrols, getting more officers out in the streets, being more responsive, with a quicker response to calls for service, 911 emergency calls, particularly shot spotter calls, but also really doubling down with our Department of Violence Prevention of trying to provide support to those that we know are at the highest risk. To really supporting families that have been involved, that have experienced a traumatic event, making sure that we can reduce retaliation by making sure that our violence interrupters can step in and begin to work these conflicts out so that they don't result in additional shootings. I think that's key. Our quick response to recovering firearms has been key as well. Yesterday, we were able to arrest a couple of suspects in possession of firearms. And so I think we will continue to focus on those that are engaged in violence and that are carrying firearms in our community and try to bring this violence to an end. It's a difficult time right now. I think, obviously, we are having to make changes in the way in which we approach these things because of COVID. But we are committed to doing that. Our community members within our Ceasefire program have been more at the forefront of our direct communication. They are speaking with community members as well and trying to encourage them to not be involved in violence. And so I think it's an all hands approach, Amber. I don't think it's just the OPD that's going to be able to figure this thing out or be able to manage this. This is going to take the city, all city resources, as well as community resources to help manage this issue around violence.
You said the victims were
Amber,
different races. Are we talking about different?
Amber, 1 second. And I know, Chief Armstrong, you were talking about guns because I know we've already recovered more than 40 so far this year already. And it's only day 21?
21 days into the year, and a recovery of over 40 firearms is really unprecedented. I mean, it is, we've recovered a lot of firearms in 2020, but to start off the year with that large number of gun recoveries says something to the proliferation of firearms in our community. And that is the challenge. How do we get these firearms out of our community? And how do we get people to not pick up those firearms and use them in our community?
Chief, I also saw that you guys think that the community should help a lot to resolve these cases. So I don't know if you can give a message to the community if they saw anything or have any information, where should they call? I also saw that there is a reward.
Yes, and I'll have Paul Chambers give you all of that information specifically. But again, to the community, we need the community's help. And we need the community's help to drive down this violence. But we also need community to put down the firearms, to put down guns, to encourage people to not use guns in our community, to say that we care about the sanctity of life in our community, that to see this level of violence in our community is concerning for everyone. I even had a family member that was a victim of violence, a homicide in the last week. And so I know personally how it's impacting our community. And so I just ask that everybody come together and help us get people to put guns down and make our community safer.
And Amber,
Chief,
I'm sorry, can you go through your question, Amber?
Yeah, originally my question was, you said it crosses different, all racial lines. Is it different ages, different genders? And are you willing to share with us a little more about your own family member?
Yeah, it's these homicides have touched multiple races within the city of Oakland. We don't see there be, it's actually pretty divided amongst a couple of races. Both African American, Latinx, as well as our Asian community. And so we've seen homicides in all three of those demographics. And so it's affected a wide range of our community.